off, I guess.
Okay.
Mike Nick said it's dangerous to blame farmers for Iowa's high cancer rates. What's your response to that?
So, I don't like using the word blame, right? And so we need accountability in all walks of life here in Iowa. All of us, we expect accountability from our fellow citizens. And so I think it's right to expect accountability for agriculture. Farmers feel pigeonholed into this system, right? And a lot of them feel like they don't have any choice. And so, they're forced to buy these inputs if they're going to grow corn and soy, and so that's what we look at in terms of the cancer, the inputs. So let's create a system where they don't have to buy these inputs, right? And so I don't think this is a matter of blaming farmers. Let's develop a system that's not going to generate the pollution in the first place. And so I'm not really interested in blaming farmers, but I do think it's right for us to request or demand some accountability from the industry as a whole. And so let's create a system where we don't have to worry about the cancer. And, just like the water quality in general, look, we put the whole onus on the backs of the farmers, right? The public and the media and others put the whole onus for water quality on the shoulders of the farmers. That's not right, right? We let corporate agribusiness come here and extract wealth, and we ask them for nothing, in terms of water quality. So let's change that system so we're not always looking at the farmers for solutions.
Used to be a lot more pasture in Iowa in the 60s and 70s.
Yep.
How do you envision the state being involved in helping the cattle industry rebound, especially in light of what happened yesterday?
So the first thing is we need to get young people access to land. That's the big thing. How do we do that? We need policy here that's going to help us get the land ownership patterns that we want, that also creates rental opportunities for farmers. And so that's what we need firstly, but also, look, the renewable fuel standard created a guaranteed market for corn. And we know we lost a lot of our pasture, especially in southern Iowa, after 2005 with the renewable fuel standard. So, farmers just decided it was easier to grow corn than it was to graze cattle, right? And so we need to reverse that. We need to start talking about the renewable fuel standard, and is it to our benefit that we're using all this land and all this corn to grow, to produce ethanol? And I think, no, let's talk about this. Let's try to retreat into something different. We know that this has not been profitable for farmers these past few years. Ethanol is not making corn farming profitable. So what else can we do with this land? And I think we need a high-level discussion here about how we can get some of these ethanol acres into pasture.
Any reaction to the president's decision to import foreign meat?
Again, it's another Band-Aid here. And why do we always look at these things, in a reactionary sort of way? Let's plan, right? Let's plan for a system here. And so I think, it's not helpful to Iowa farmers that raise cattle. It's not helpful to other farmers in the U.S. that raise cattle. High demand creates better profitability for cattle production. So why is the president, kicking farmers in the gut with this 660 million pounds of hamburger that's only going to be around for 90 days? Again, it's just another expensive Band-Aid that largely falls on the back of the American people. So
Republicans have seized on a clip of you talking about farmers and their work ethic. I guess your response to the criticism and the comments you made about farmers and their work ethic?
So I never talk about their work ethic. All I'm doing is pointing out the amount of time that it takes or the amount of labor it takes to grow an acre of corn and soybeans. And so the fact of the matter is we have these vast expanses of corn and soybeans because it doesn't take a lot of labor hours to grow corn and soybeans. And so everything I say on that clip I got from farmers, right? They know this. I mean, look at the responses on social media. Largely where's the lie here? There is no lie. And so, look, we need farming in Iowa such that we have systems that require more labor. We need that, right? We need more farmers, not less farmers, right? And so as long as we're going to focus on corn and soybean, we're going to get fewer and fewer farmers. We need diverse systems. Those diverse systems require more labor, right? If you have 3 or 4 crops instead of 2 crops, it requires more labor. And so the clip that is being used, I think, is it's not used within the context that I made the comments. And so the context that I made the comments are, it really does not take many labor hours to grow corn and soybeans in Iowa. You know, those are literature that's available in the literature. It's about 2 hours per acre. Well, the average farm in Iowa is 305 acres, 86,000 farms. And so we know the average farm from that is about 305 acres, 2 hours of labor per acre. That's 600 hours, right? 600 to 700 hours. That's just the fact from the literature. So it has nothing to do with their work ethic, nothing at all. We need systems where they're more intimately connected to the land, and sure, that means work.
Can we talk a little bit more about labor? Because about 30 years ago, I had a friend renting 3 acres growing organic vegetables. And she could barely even keep up with 3 acres. So how would someone realistically convert to growing fruits and vegetables on a farm that's even 300 acres, let alone 500 or 1,000?
So that's the question, right? These other crops provide more, they require more labor. And so if we're going to have farmers growing these vegetable crops, they need certainty on labor. And so we need policy that's going to make labor available to them, right? And what do we have in this country? We have a big effort to send people back to their home countries, right? And so these are people that could help repopulate rural Iowa. They could provide labor for fruit and vegetable farmers. They want to do these jobs, right? A lot of these people that come from other countries, they have agricultural backgrounds. This is the work that they want to do. And so we need policy that's going to make labor available to these sorts of farmers. These farmers also need certainty, right? They need certainty about labor. It's just like certainty. We give certainty to corn and soy farmers through the crop insurance program. We need to give certainty to vegetable crop farmers when it comes to labor. I think we can develop policy that will do that.
Speaking of policy, you said that we need common sense regulations in the state, ones that don't impact yields or impact farmer incomes. I guess, how do you do that without without impacting yields, without impacting the income of farmers? And what are some of the policies that you would push for?
So one of the things we talk about all the time that we've known for 50 years is a bad practice is fall tillage. And so why do we allow it? It increases soil erosion, it increases nutrient loss. We know that it's bad. We know Iowa State has been putting guidance out on fall tillage for 50 years. It all says one thing, don't do it. So why do we allow that? We know it's not necessary in this system to get good crop yields, right? It's a convenience thing. And so if you're farming 5 or 10,000 acres and you think you need tillage, well, you're going to do some of it in the fall, right? You think you're going to do some in the fall because you're scared you won't be able to get it all done in the spring. And so this is also a way that we can restrict further consolidation, right? Is some regulation on these practices. The other big thing here is fall anhydrous. Again, we've known for 50 years that fall anhydrous is a suboptimal practice. We know there's more loss. We know that farmers apply more when they apply in the fall because the product's got to sit there for 8 months before the corn uses it. Why do we allow it? And so there's certain things we can restrict or that we can tax, to get the behaviors that we want. We know that you do not have to apply anhydrous in the fall to get good yields. We know that. We know it disproportionately pollutes the water, so why do we allow it?
So just to clarify, would you be in favor of banning fall tillage and banning?
I would. I have been on the record for years that I think those things should be banned. So yeah.
Or tax.
Or tax it. Yes.
Be more specific about the data center moratorium. You said 1 or 2 years. Should it be a state priority for the next governor? What do you want to see happen in January when the legislature convenes?
So I do think we need, at a minimum, a 1-year moratorium. I do. And so I would be in favor of that if the legislature passed such a law and the governor signed it. You know, again, if we want more farmers, if we want more young farmers, if we want these vegetable crops and these other diverse crops, if we want cattle on pasture, we can't have data centers, you know, gobbling up all this land. I mean, it's common sense, right? And so I'm not saying that life in America is going to be without AI. You know, I think, you know, we're all using AI on some level right now, but I think people are terrified about what's happening with these data centers. You know, it's an 80% issue. And so as a politician, how do you not react to an 80% issue?
Can you speak quickly about the specific policies to increase processing small grains?
Increasing small grain? Well, we need the Economic Development Authority to work with farmers that want to open, or work with farmers and others that want to open grain mills, for example. We see the Iowa farmer that's working with other farmers to open up the big grain mill, oat mill in Albert Lea, Minnesota, because he couldn't get that here in Iowa, right? He couldn't get the assistance from the Economic Development Authority. And so we need state government to work with these people that want to build out the infrastructure that's going to support these alternatives to corn and soy. Right now, the political establishment wants farmers, you know, pigeonholed into this corn, soy, CAFO system. Why is that? Well, to grow an acre of corn here in Iowa now, this year, costs $912 to grow an acre of corn. To grow an acre of oats costs $250, right? So why do you think everybody wants farmers growing corn, right? Because it juices the system. It juices the system with all this money. Well, all that money just goes out of the state, right? Let's keep it in the state. Let's have our state government and let's have the taxpayers help build out infrastructure that's going to support alternatives to corn and soy. I'm all about that.
And in terms of restoring some of the small meat lockers or meat processing, would that also be state incentive?
Sure, same thing, right? And so, you know, the other thing too is if we get the cattle back, if we get the hogs and cattle back in small scale production systems, will the meat processing follow? Maybe it will, right? We don't really know right now, but if we need taxpayer money to support that, I think it's fair to do it. We support the system now as it is with our tax dollars, right? We support this corn, soy, CAFO system with our tax dollars. Wouldn't it be better to support a system that's going to give us the outcomes that we want as citizens and taxpayers? And I think those outcomes are local foods, it's meat that's raised sustainably and humanely. I think it's a diverse countryside where small towns are more prosperous, where we're not hearing about school closings every month. That's the system I think Iowans want. Doesn't it make better sense to support an alternative to work towards that system versus the one that just supports the status quo of corn and soy? What has the status quo done for rural Iowa? You know, I would suggest to you that it's caused rural Iowa to crumble. At the same time, farmers aren't making money, right? And so why are we doing this?
Can I ask a clarifying question? You said that water quality shouldn't fall on the backs of farmers, that big ag companies should be accountable as well. What do you envision there?
So, well, the fall anhydrous is a good one. We have 1,000 ag retailers in Iowa. They all have a CCA, or most of them anyway, have a certified crop advisor that's selling product on commission, right? And so can we get a different system to sell these inputs? Can we restrict sales of fertilizer on commission, for example? You know, these CCAs are encouraging farmers to apply more product than what they need. You know, we've known this for a long, long time. So for example, you know, we should be able to regulate the sale of inputs without that being onerous on the farmer.
You also, in the context of the answer on the data center issue out there, you said the focus for the use of the land should be for its highest use.
Yes.
Explain.
So
Should the state pass, like if it rates as a high corn rating or whatever,
So,
whatever
right.
the USDA rating.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So who decides the highest use, right? And so I think as Iowans, we view the highest use as producing food historically. And that's what we did here up until, maybe 1950 or thereabouts. Now we don't do that anymore. We produce commodity crops and, CAFO raised livestock and ethanol. That's what we're about. And so the highest use, sure, that's a question. Who decides? And of course, it's got to be our politics that decides. And so it can't be just the Secretary of Agriculture, but it damn sure shouldn't be Bayer, right? Or a Corteva or a Pioneer or whoever, right? Okay.